Well, good to be back here, and I'd like to start off by dedicating. Eating in front of me again. I'd like to dedicate this program tonight in memory of Jerry Angier, who recently passed. He was a tremendous Bangor Aroostook aficionado. He published a full history book on the Bangor Aroostook, as well as a full color book. But in addition to that, he's been president of the 470 Club, a trustee, and has planned a number of the 470 Club excursions over the years. In fact, the video DVD we're going to see tonight, the Potato Land Express in 1980 from Northern Maine Junction up to Caribou using the BL2 American Railfan. He planned that trip as well. But he was also a really good friend. And, he told me a couple months ago that he would be listening in tonight. Well, maybe he is listening in. So I think we'll start with a short history of the Bangor Aroostook before we move into 3 short DVDs. And then we're going to take a break. And then I'm going to try to bring you up to date on the complexities of how the Bangor Aroostook is operating these days. So without further ado, I'll start with a little bit of a history here by saying both the Maine Central and the Bangor Aroostook had over 100 years each of proud history. But like the Maine Central, when the Bangor Aroostook was sold, it has had multiple owners, which I'm going to attempt to sort out in the second half of the program. But we're going to start with a short history of the Bangor Aroostook. Let's see. It was late in the railroad development scene when the B&A organized in 1891 to build north from Bangor into the massive 68,000-mile wilderness of Aroostook County. A prominent logger in the region, Albert Burley, organized local towns to be served by a railroad, and they would contribute to its building after being turned down for funds from the state of Maine 3 times. And it was called the Burley Scheme. He even contributed his own fortune to the building of the railroad. Although serving the agricultural and lumbering possibilities was a desire, it was really the potato production demand that spurred the building north and contributed to half the income of the railroad. By 1915, as this map shows, the railroad swelled to its greatest track mileage of 850 miles and was very profitable. The railroad's nickname was changed from B&A to BAR to avoid being confused with the Boston and Albany with the same initials. Okay, let's go on to the next one here. All right, from 1870 to 1890, the potato growing industry increased 60-fold in this geographical area. The railroad responded by serving this industry well with heated boxcars. Up through the 1920s, cars used for agriculture and wood products shifted over in the fall to being fitted for potatoes. The insides of these cars were lined with construction paper with straw on the floor. Each car had a wooden or coal heater to keep the potatoes from freezing. Every 7 cars with heaters were maintained by one man riding along with the train in a caboose or a coach. And these folks were nicknamed potato bugs. In the latter years, the refrigerated cars became self-maintained, and they were painted in the distinctive red, white, and blue scheme. And this fleet of hundreds of heated cars was second only to the Santa Fe. During the winter months, they were leased to the Pacific fruit growers. 40 to 50,000 cars of potatoes were shipped each year in the late 1940s. The Bangor Aroostook operated more modern north and southbound passenger trains like the Aroostook Flyer and the Potato Land Express. Main roads were not plowed, get this, even through the 1930s. So trains were just about the only way to get around during the winter's feet and feet of snow. The railroad had a fleet of steam and diesel locomotives well maintained in their shops at Derby. They had 15 482s or mountains, which could handle 140 to 150 car potato train alone with ease. The steam locomotive era ended in 1952, and some of their first generation's diesels operated well into the 1990s. Unfortunately, none of the Bangor Aroostook steam locomotives were preserved. The Bangor Aroostook operated with Yankee efficiency. However, they couldn't control outside influences like the building of the I-95 corridor in the 1960s, which siphoned off rail traffic to trucks. The potato traffic cratered in 1969 when the whole potato crop was lost in Selkirk Yard of the Penn Central Railroad. Refrigerator car heaters were not kept fueled and the potatoes rotted. Because of the poor rail service south of the Bangor and Aroostook, potato farms went out of business or shifted to trucks, as did even agricultural growers. Pulpwood, wood chip shipments, and outbound paper from big paper companies like Great Northern in East Millinocket and Madawaska helped cushion the blow of losing the potato industry. However, BAR's financial fortunes still continued to slide until a holding company called the Bangor Punta bought the railroad in 1964. In 1969, an entrepreneur named F.C. Buck Dumaine bought the railroad again. He initiated belt-tightening measures and fostered company pride. In 1976, he started the 5-year tradition of the turkey train, which handed out turkeys to every company employee. So after 111 years of history, the Bangor and Aroostook was bought by the Iron Road Railways in 1995, and will continue this latter-day rail story up to the present in the second half of the program. Now, this is the way the Bangor Aroostook looked in the 1930s, early 40s. And the next DVD we're going to start with is a unique 8mm movie made by Bangor and Aroostook employee Forrest Bunker. Maybe some of you remember him. He was hired in 1942 and worked 33 years on both steam and diesel as a fireman and engineer. The movie he made in the late 1940s and early 50s shows the transition from steam to diesel. It is mostly color with some black and white footage, taken from the cabs of both diesel and steam locomotives over some stretches of rail now abandoned and ripped up. I added his voice narration with his distinct Maine accent and some swing music. He was a 470 trustee and lived to be 100 with a sound mind. I have edited the movie. It was probably about an hour long, but I got it down to about 15 minutes. There are some jumpy parts because of being taken from a steam locomotive cab in some cases. But I think you'll be able to overlook the imperfections in this 15-minute DVD because of the rarity of the subject matter. the last portion of the DVD shows the tremendous snow challenges the railroad had. But I'm going to point out some locations where, just so you can see where he took some of the movies. So the Bangor and Aroostook originally built out of Bangor, but they had a line down here to Old Town where they connected with the main central. Where am I? Here we are. They had this line going down to Old Town, connect with the main central into Bangor, and had joint trackage over to Northern Main Junction. However, later they developed an easier grade straight into Northern Main and discontinue or because this had a grade here, discontinued this portion of the line. Now at South LaGrange, the Bangor and Aroostook built what would they call the Medford Cutoff. It was 30 miles long, and it kind of shortened the run up here, but it also made the railroad sort of a double track railroad. And Forrest Bunker's movie starts at Northern Main Junction, switching the yard with an 080, and then we'll move up to South LaGrange, where we'll see an empty yard, mainly because all the potato cars are out on lease to Pacific fruit growers. But they would come back in time for the potato harvest. And then we go up the Medford Cutoff, and he'll also have some of the portion of the movie is on the 50-mile Greenville branch. Now, when this was first built, the Canadian Pacific wasn't even in existence. But there is a wonderful trestle called the Bunker Brook Trestle just outside of Greenville in this area, about 100 feet tall and quite long. So you'll see a train going across there. And then we got some stuff, the Millinocket branch here at South Sabuus is where the northern end of the Medford Cutoff is, and you'll see some steam trains there. And then you'll see some action going down to the Great Northern East Millinocket branch. And then we go up to Oakfield, which is now, it was shut down, but now it's operating quite heavily. And we're going to see trains going up this port, which let's see, there's Washburn up here, and then now that's up a little bit up above that, up in this area here. I'm gonna go on to the next map. Yeah, here's a close-up. See, this trackage from Holton all the way up to Presque Isle is gone now, but you're going to see his movies, Robinson, Harvey, and then this line out of Mapleton up to Van Buren was built as a lower grade initially, but now this has been discontinued, and in fact the line stops here at Caribou and just goes over to Limestone. So I think I'm going to start the movie, and he'll have some movies along this line which parallels the CN line across the St. John River. And then you'll have a steam train shown, the St. Francis local, because this line's been pulled up, and it's a walking path. There'll be some scenes around Portage and up along here. But a lot of this stuff that he rode, you'll be seeing from Holton up and up here and all the way here. Stockholm, for instance, right here, it will be in the middle of a big snow, and because this is now all gone. So that'll give you a better idea when he mentions names. It's narrated. I may throw in a few words as well, but we'll minimize this. Yep. I think it's already called up. All right. Yep. So as I say, this is a bit blurry, but considering the fact that it was taken in the 1940s and 50s, it's quite amazing. Okay. Now what I clicked on it, and let's see, do I? Oh, whoop, there we go. All right. Oh, there we go. Northern Main Junction, switcher. Look at the length of those potato cars. Now this is South LaGrange, the start of the Medford cutoff. No cars here because they're all on lease to Pacific fruit growers, but normally the potato cars would be here. There's the tower here on the right. I don't care. This is the Medford cutoff. And he said you could see your whole train of 140 to 150 cars stretched out in this area here. Now here's a steam diesel. The steam is behind the diesel. Otherwise, the diesel cab would have been filled full of coal cinders. Here's Mount Cut. Yep, this is Siberia, they called it. This is coming off the Millinocket branch and at West Savoyce. This is the start of the Medford cutoff. West Savoyce. Wapan is where the line to Presque Isle takes off. And Portage Lake is on the line up to Madawaska and Fort Kent. Here's the St. Francis local. Here's another fall foliage. Now this is where it shifts over to color. You can see the potato. And this is North Twin Lake with Mount just below Millinocket. That's the gardener at Derby. He had a full-time job cutting, just keeping the hedges trimmed. And he could not be bumped. There's another this is a diesel passenger train. Ledge cut going over to Millinocket. One of their rustic flyer or potato land special. Yep, this is on the track that's no longer exists now. They painted their steam locomotives with a nice white stripe and in latter years. Silver stripe. Here's potato fields. Now we got a cute sequence of Forrest shoveling coal into the firebox and take him to take a big swig of hopefully water. It'll be coming right up here. There he is. Yep, New Sweden is above Caribou. This is all gone, but you had to really shovel coal. There he is taking his swig. I'm not sure what was in that, but now we're having a big one of the big mountains switching the yard at Northern Main Junction. This is Ontario North and Western, one of the rebuilds that had just been rebuilt in the late 40s. At 105. Now we're going to have Forrest lived in Pittsfield, and so he was near the Heartland branch, and here's a steam-plowed snowplow on the Heartland branch. Looks like he got quite a snow bath when the plow went through. There you go, and wow! All right. Then another little farther down on the Heartland branch, got a wedge plow up front and a flanger on the rear. Then we're going to move to the Greenville branch, the 50-mile Greenville branch. And there's going to see a newly shopped mogul, all freshly painted, moving on the Greenville branch. Whoever worked on this job, he said, it's being only 50 miles, you didn't have long extended days. You got home, back and home. There's Mount Katahdin in North Twin Lake, little taste of winter. Now we're looking across the St. John River to the steam freights, the Canadian National steam freights on the other side. This is taken on the Van Buren side or Fort Kent side. There's a coal train on the Medford cutoff with the. Yep, a lot of the steam locomotives out of service at Derby. We're going to see a Pittsfield consolidation passenger train going through his hometown of Pittsfield, Maine Central. Then we're going to have a little scene here on Bunker Brook Trestle. There it is, 100 feet to the bottom. Then we're going to have a circus train. Yep, there's coming across Bunker Brook Trestle with a BL2. And there's a circus train, World of Mirth, passing through Presque Isle to Van Buren and into Canada. Then we're going to have a parade of the Bangor Aroostook steam locomotives heading to Worcester to be scrapped in 1951. Here's Forrest Bunker's garden in Pittsfield. Here comes the steam locomotives with the Maine Central GP7, with the larger ones up front, the small ones in the rear. How sad that not one of them could be preserved. Then we're going to have a Maine Central Pacific passing through Pittsfield with a passenger train. Then we have some sequences at the Millinocket logs. Pile them all up in the winter and then used for paper making in the summer. Massive mountains of. Talking about mountains of wood. Now we're going to move up into the. Now we're going to move a little bit of, that's Mosquito Mountain on the Searsport branch. And we're back to Greenville with Bunker Brook Trestle again, just a short little sequence here. And then sorry about this. Now we're going to get into a fun part here with the rest of the movie is in the snow country. And now he's looking across again to a CN train along the route over to Van Buren. And then we've got Island Falls. This would have been with a D, one of the E7s. Looks like they had a bit of a wreck there. Oh, there's the Aroostook Valley, little 44 tonners going underneath the Bangor Aroostook Prescott. Oh, there's a brand new first diesel on the property, GP7 demonstrator. Yep, they pulled every card in the yard with it. Going through Washburn. Again, this track is gone with steam. Van Buren Yard. Now coming into Fort Kent. This is Portage. There, now we get into good color. Give you an idea what they had to plow through in the wintertime. Now we're coming into Stockholm, where the heading for Van Buren, but look at the size of the snowdrifts there. Early 50s. They hadn't quite cleared the whole yard in Caribou yet. You're going to see the look at those snowdrifts. Yeah, here's the yard before it was actually spread. North of Presque Isle. Amazing. There's the bridge out of Presque Isle. I think they still get snow up there, but I don't think anything like this. Yeah, this is almost the end of the movie here, but here's an idea of the fresh snowfall after probably a foot or two of snow. Yeah, I think they're going to be coming into Oakfield Yard here. There's the coaling tipple. Now it's just a couple more sequences of the trees just laid over with a tremendous amount of snow. And Katahdin wraps it up. North Twin Lake, just south of Millinocket. All right, so that is end of one DVD. Now I'd like to put in the second one. The Maine Central got rid of their F3 cab units in the mid-60s by 1965. So I never saw them going up through Crawford Notch. However, the Bangor Aroostook held on to theirs for at least another 15 years. So it was kind of a pilgrimage for me to get up there in the late 70s, and Super 8 sound movies were just coming into vogue. So I took my dad's sound movie up there and recorded some wonderful first generation freight actions with F3s, BL2s, you name it. And so I'd like to show a portion of this movie first. And then the second shorter one will be the 470 Club's Potato Land special from Northern Main Junction. It was a 2-day trip from Northern Main Junction up to Caribou, 400-mile round trip with American Railfan BL2 557. Anybody know where the 557 is today?
I do. It's at the Coal and Transportation Museum in Bangor.
You got it. That is right.
And in fact, I shared photos of it.
Yeah. Well, it would be nice if someday they would haul that out and put it back into service. But anyway, so we're going to start with ON 44. That was Oakfield to Northern Main Junction. Pretty much of a straight shot, except for one stop in Millinocket. In the first scene here, we got it accelerating across a deck bridge just out of Oakfield Yard with an F3 leading. And then next we have it roaring around a curve at Dyer Brook. Then it's going to move past classic potato houses at Dyer Brook. And then across a deck bridge at Island Falls. And finally, it's going to cast its reflection in the still Seebeck River at Milo. Here we go. At this time, they had shifted over to pulp and paper, pretty much. Now, this is at Dyer Brook. This is then there when they used to put their money under the wheels. Now this is they're really pulling through Dyer Brook, pouring it on. They'll be up to a maximum speed of probably 40 miles an hour. And now many places they're trying to get it up beyond 10 miles an hour. I think some places they got it up to 25 miles an hour.
Hey Ron, just real quick, do you guys have sound there in the room on your video?
We do.
Okay, because we're not getting any sound online.
I thought I think I have it up as high as it'll go. Can anybody else?
And we didn't get any sound from the first video you showed either.
Well, you got my voice narration, right?
Yes.
Okay. Well, that basically covered it. I
Okay.
don't understand. I don't know. I'm not a tech.
That video is very, very quiet. Not much.
Yeah, but this should be blasting out right now, and it's not. And I've got it as loud as it'll go. So I don't know. This is a beautiful reflection of the train. Yeah, it's too bad. But anyway.
What are those two engines after the lead F3?
Those are BL2s. Branch line, BL stands for branch line. Several of them have been preserved and are being used on tourist lines today, along with a couple of the F3s. Okay, I'm going to stop. I'm going to stop it right here. This is a different train. Anyway, you know how I can stop this? I actually want to stop it. Now I want to go back to the menu and get on to Title 3. Where is the menu? Okay, let's take the DVD out, put it in one more time, and I'll cycle it down to the next video. Because we've only got so much time, and I wanted to get on to the Potato Land special. This particular excursion used 3 Conway Scenic coaches, and guys like Dwight Smith and Emmons Lancaster were on the excursion. Can I click share or something here to get? This may be it. Share. Oh, okay, here we are. All right. Okay, so so this is at Northern Main Junction. There's Howard Kirkpatrick, and I'll show you a picture of there's Emmons Lancaster and Dwight Smith before we left. It was kind of a murky excursion, except for some just the last coming home part. But it's so wonderful that this locomotive has been preserved. It was especially painted by the Bangor Aroostook to honor those are called American Railfan. They painted some of their other BL2s in their more modern orange and gray, dark gray schemes. This station has just been torn down, the Northern Main Junction station in May, but the coaling tipples are still left. Now, the next scene is going to be northbound at Hudson, Maine, which is just about 10 miles out of Northern Main Junction. I wonder if they're getting any sound now on yeah. They tried.
We're not.
Did you say we're on?
We are not getting any
Oh.
sound.
Ah, shoot.
When you
That
when you
was
when you shared,
1980.
Ron, when you shared your screen, you needed to select the option to share sound as well.
On the screen, share sound. Okay. I don't see any option to share sound. I don't know what I'm looking for. 10 minutes, something like that. All right, this is coming through. The whole purpose of this is so they can get the sound. Share sound. Where is share sound?
Hold on 1 sec, everybody.
We might start this one over again. This is coming through Derby and the coaling tipple at the Derby shops, which is just south of Brownville. You see, I don't see share sound. Share. Okay, this is the Y at Brownville, the Brownville Y with the Canadian Pacific. Sun came out here a little bit. This is North Cross. North again. We have a short sequence here of the Great Northern Paper Company's side rod 44 tonner unloading logs at East Millinocket.
And for what it's worth, we are getting sound now.
What kind of magic button did you hit, Dan? Oh, man. Okay, this is Squapan Lake. Slices right through the lake. Heading for Caribou. Presque Isle Caribou. Now that you can see where the caboose is, they went around the Y there, and now the caboose is falling because they can't turn the whole train up in Caribou. They just have a turntable. Now we have Grindstone. This is ON 44 southbound across the east branch of the Penobscot River. This will brighten up in just a second. Mostly all blue scheme. The S has been painted in new. That's one of an ex-troop sleeper right there. They're using it as a caboose. And they don't let special rolls north, Rhinestone. Wait for the freight train to go through first. And then here's the special coming into Oakfield, and this station now has been taken over by the Oakfield Historical Society and really nicely restored. We're going to have southbound ON 28, which follows ON 44, with a couple of Jeep 7s and an F3, and they're departing Oakfield Yard. Got some pulpwood cars there. It was adopted in the early 80s. Now this is passing northbound through the Oakfield, nearly deserted Oakfield Yard with their 1890s roundhouse in the background and a wonderful water tank with the Bangor Aroostook symbol. This yard eventually closed, but it's now in the mid 80s. But now it's opened up again. It's quite thriving. And then this is crossing the Aroostook River, arriving at Presque Isle from Caribou. This is the next day. No, excuse me. This is the first day. They turned the locomotive. They got lay over in Presque Isle for the night, and then back the other way. I'm going to stop this right now. All right, there we go. Wonderful. So I think this would be a good time to take a break. And when we come back again, we'll talk about the current status of the Bangor and Aroostook and the myriad of intricacies going on. But I'll have I got a nice map for you. All right. Can we stop this? I don't. Why don't you just pull it out of the player there? And if you can call up, see where my digital, or is that share again? Okay, there we go. Let's see. I want my,
break, right?
yeah, right now is break time. Atlantic. As the demand for paper continued to decline, due in part to the internet, Montreal, Maine, and Atlantic struggled through the 2000s. In 2010, the Montreal, Maine, and Atlantic sold a 57-mile chunk of the former Bangor and Aroostook from Millinocket up to Madawaska to the state of Maine for $20 million. And this also included the 3 branches, one from Millinocket up to Holton, and another from Ashland to Presque Isle, Fort Fairfield, and Caribou. And a 3rd segment from Madawaska over to Van Buren. And the state of Maine leased this track to J.D. Irving, a big conglomerate based in St. John, New Brunswick. They renamed this portion of track as the Maine Northern Railroad, the part that they leased from the state of Maine. So MNR means Maine Northern Railroad. So new revenue in the form of finished lumber, wood chips, propane, diesel, vegetable oil, fertilizer, and aggregates were developed and are being developed. And then it renamed the 28-mile segment of track from Madawaska over to Van Buren the Eastern Maine Railway, EMR. You know, this is all kind of paper type stuff. It also owns the track from Brownville Junction over to Vanceboro and down to Woodland, the Woodland paper mill here, where it goes from Canada into Maine. You may have recently seen an article by Lucas Layton in Railfan magazine on this branch, and it's fascinating. It goes in and out of Canada and Maine 5 times. But they call this the New Brunswick Southern. However, on paper, it's also called the Eastern Maine Railway. You can see it gets complicated, right? Yeah. So the Montreal, Maine and Atlantic still owned a couple of miles north of Millinocket, in here, to Grindstone and south to Searsport. Unfortunately, in 2013, a Montreal, Maine and Atlantic oil train derailed and exploded in the small town of Lac-Mégantic, Quebec. As a result, the town was nearly destroyed, killing 47 people. A $200 million lawsuit put this railroad into bankruptcy. It was bought by the Fortress Corporation, and a new railroad was formed called the Central Maine and Quebec, which started operating in 2014. Now, the CP, remember you told it had sold its line 25 years previously, entered the rail scene again in 2020 and bought the Central Maine and Quebec, including its line cast off 25 years previously from Montreal to Brownville Junction. And the purchase included the Bangor Aroostook's former line down to Searsport. Now it has a number of attractive financial connections. The new owners, after Iron Road's bankruptcy, put $30 million into track rehabilitation and bridge replacement. Although the track is not up to the Bangor Aroostook days of 40 miles an hour, and many places track speed is up to a respectable 25 miles an hour. Now, in 2022, the CP decided to sell the last 36-mile segment of the Central Maine and Quebec to J.D. Irving from Grindstone up here above Millinocket to Millinocket and East Millinocket. Okay, where am I here? And which is labeled as the Eastern Maine Railway. And this may be an attractive acquisition by J.D. Irving, as there is a company called Highland Carbon Pellet Mill is due to be built on the site of the former Great Northern Paper Company in East Millinocket here. And the mill will take new shipments of wood chips and logs and ship out cars of finished wood pellets via the CP to Searsport to export. Okay, that was quite a mouthful. Now we're going to shift to some before and after shots of the Bangor Aroostook in the 70s and 80s. I'm going to include shots that I took and then the new rail operations in the same locations. Lucas Lighton, who lives in northern Maine, allowed me to use some of his great digital photography to illustrate the current rail scene in northern Maine. And as I said, he recently authored an excellent article on the Woodland branch of the former Maine Central and Eastern Maine. So we're going to start at the southernmost portion of the Bangor Aroostook at Searsport and work north up here to Madawaska and over to Van Buren. So let's move ahead to the next. There we go. This is from Jerry Enger's all-color book on the Bangor Aroostook. And we see an iron road. They're the first ones that bought the Bangor Aroostook train northbound at Winterport from Searsport to Northern Maine Junction in 1998 by Glenn Perry. Northern Vermont, remember I mentioned that the iron roads bought the CP lines from Newport down to Woodsville, Vermont, and they renamed that segment of the iron roads to Northern Vermont Railroads. And here is the attractive color scheme that they, of gray and blue, GP38 painted into its new colors. Okay, all right, let's go over here. Here's a state of Maine special. It passes under Mosquito Mountain just north of Prospect on its way to Searsport in July of '85 with Bangor Aroostook F3 42 on the point. This is an RRE excursion. Now here is a CP train from Brownsville Junction, the same location, Mosquito Mountain, heading south for Searsport in the winter of 2021. And this photo is by Lucas Lighton. Now here's a CP train with a former Central Maine and Quebec, GP38 leading, that crosses over the former Maine Central Main line, now CSX, coming into Northern Maine Junction from Brownsville Junction in the spring of 2024. So this is a paint scheme of the previous railroad. And now here's the same train passing by the boarded up Northern Maine Junction station, which unfortunately was torn down in May of this year. They had real asbestos problems. Now only the two old former coaling tipples and the engine house remain of a once busy yard. There's a shot that I took at the train ON 44 is come from Oakfield, passes by the Northern Maine Junction station and the former coaling tipple. Now, in August of '81, I got together with Jim Boyd, who is the editor of Railfan magazine, and we set up 3 of the BL2s in the Northern Maine Junction yard, including the American Railfan in a night shot. And I caught up with a snowplow work extra with BL2 54, passing the former Hudson section house 10 miles from Northern Maine Junction, with still plenty of snow on the ground at the end of March in '76. They were bringing down the work crane as well as a couple of cars from there, a business train. Now we're going to move north to the start of the 30-mile Medford cutoff at South LaGrange. And ON 44 is passing the abandoned tower with 4 GP7s and 9s in charge in August '81. This whole Medford cutoff was torn up in the mid-'80s. And you can see, though, they really did well with the rock ballast on their main line, so they could really move along. Here's another shot I took just before the line was, Medford cutoff was pulled up with all the reefers, some of which have become camps and different storage stuff, and a lot of them, all the rest of them were scrapped. Never to be used again. Now here's some of their new refrigerated cars, in their new red, white, and scheme. And then here's one of the orange, also refrigerated car, and then the old state of Maine red, white, and blue cars. So passing through Rigby in 1972, and then they experimented with this red, white, and blue scheme as well. But this didn't catch on. Now here's the Derby shops, a few miles north of Brownville. It's the pride of the railroad for workmanship. And all the steam locomotives they repaired and diesels, and this is a steam locomotive Bell here. This was taken in 1972. So I think this shop is still in existence. Now here's the same shot I took with the Sound Movies. ON44 cast a reflection in Seebeck River at Milo, just above Derby in April of '79. Now this is the last Central Maine and Quebec train at Brownsville Junction on June 3rd, 2020, just before the CP took over. And this is a Lucas Leighton photo. Now you notice there's two units here. The second one is with an SD40-2 painted in 2017 to honor the Bangor Aroostook. And here we have a Maine Northern train with a mixture of locomotives here, different color schemes, going across the West Branch of the Penobscot River at Norcross, a few miles south of Millinocket by Lucas Leighton. And here's a shot I took of the heading south along the Northern Maine Junction in October of '80 along North Twin Lake, just south of Millinocket. And here you can, on clear day, look right across to Mount Katahdin. ON44 has just one stop at Millinocket to set up and pick up cars on its trip between Oakfield and Northern Maine Junction in September of '77. Unfortunately, this station has just been torn down too. You can see the engine house and coaling tipple. I think both of those may be still there. And then here's the local from Millinocket. It operates over the 7-mile branch to East Millinocket. That's where we're going to build that massive pellet mill, hopefully, with perfect reflection and Dolby flowage in September '78. This is now Eastern Maine Railway territory. In other words, the Irving Company owns it. So that at the end of this branch will be the new carbon pellet mill. Here's a new Maine Northern Railway train in New Brunswick Southern colors, rolling through fresh snow at Dyer Brooks, 5 miles south of Oakfield in 1223, Lucas Leighton. And here's another train, Maine Northern train he took recently here with wood chips, passes an old potato house at Dyer Brook. I think this is the only one left. And then in BAR days, one that I took with a few more potato houses still in evidence. And here's a going away shot of the excellent roadbed of the Bangor Aroostook. You can see the rock ballast and everything, and this train will accelerate up to 40 miles an hour. And then just south out of Oakfield is this there's quite a grade, and ON44 with 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 locomotives, GP38, 7s and 9s. Accelerates its 125 car train around the curve in October '84, 1 week before Oakfield Yard closed. Now it has been reopened and is busy with Maine Northern Railway traffic. ON28 follows ON44 after several hours, and here it's departing Oakfield Yard with the depot, which has now wonderfully been restored. You'll see a picture of it in just a second. Even in April '75, there was still plenty of snow on the ground. I love this picture here. I used another one similar to this on the cover of my book on the Bangor Aroostook. But here is ON44 with an F3 slicing the operating semaphores at the entrance to Oakfield Yard. And the cool thing is 2 SW9s are shoving mightily at the end of this 120-car train in April of 1976. And here are the SW9 switching the yard, pulling past the Oakfield Depot in September of 77. And then we have a Maine Northern train passing the same depot, beautifully restored, home to the Oakfield Historical Society in April of 23, Lucas Light and photo. Here's an Oakfield yard at night shot on September 23rd, 1977. Now, the Bangor Aroostook participated in the with the bicentennial GP7 1776 Jeremiah O'Brien on the left, with an F3 and a coaling tipple on the right over here. In the 1950s, after steam finish, they turned this coaling tipple into a control tower. And it was then recently, it was replaced. So we'll see, what are we, 2 years away from the 250th anniversary? Wonder what the railroads will do this time. And here's an F3 on the turntable, the old water tank with a steam locomotive as a wind direction in September 78. And then the coaling tipple was torn down and a new headquarters was built in the early 80s to replace it, with the same steam locomotive and director on a mountain on a pole. Unfortunately, the new quarters became shortly no longer needed when it closed in 1984, and unfortunately it burned sometime afterward. Now here's a northbound train 211 from Madawaska leaving Oakfield past an active semaphore with the original roundhouse of the 1890s in the background in April of 76. Now, 25 miles north of Oakfield is Squaw Pan, where the branch to Presque Isle and Caribou leaves the main line. Northbound train 211 from Madawaska meets the train over here from Caribou, waiting on the branch in April of 75. Now the train from Caribou bound for Oakfield pulls onto the main after 211 passes. And here we have train 211 passing the Ashland at the Ashland Depot. Let's see here. Oh, excuse me. I got ahead of myself. 5 miles north is Ashland, where north and southbound trains 211 and 212 meet, with an ex-World War II troop sleeper caboose bringing up the rear of 211 in April of 76. Now train 211 passes the Ashland Depot with an F3 and 2 BL2s bound for Oakfield. And then we have train 212 crossing the Aroostook River at Ashland in July 76. This picture I took was used by the Bangor and Aroostook for a large, they made a large publicity photo, something like 9 by 12 or something, or it was larger than that, hand out to the public. Kind of shows what they were up to in that time period. Now here's a local heading for the International Bridge at Van Buren, the northern end of the Bangor and Aroostook, 20 miles east of Madawaska along the St. John River. This is now the Eastern Maine Railway, another Irving line, leased from the state of Maine. And here is the GP7 backing across the St. John River to Canada at Van Buren in August of 79. Now at Madawaska, Buck Dumain's turkey train prepares to leave Madawaska on its journey south to deliver turkeys to employees living along the line on December 8th, 1981. Custom official guards the International Bridge to Canada. And then we have the turkey train traveling along the St. John River, looking across to a Canadian cathedral west of Frenchville, 10 miles west of Madawaska. And then one of my favorite places to catch trains is the turkey train. It winds along 5 miles along the 15-mile long Eagle Lake 10 miles south of Fort Kent. Sun just is breaking through as the turkey train follows the end of Portage Lake, 10 miles north of Ashland. Now here's some stills. The 470 Club and the NRHS sponsored a 400-mile round-trip 2-day excursion from Northern Main Junction to Caribou and return on May 31st and June 1st of 81. Did I say? I think that should be 80, sorry. The trip was handled by the BL2 American Railfan. And this is why they had to get their train switched on the Y at Brownville, because there was no Y here up at Caribou. So it's getting spun on the turntable before heading south to Presque Isle for a night layover. And here's the special crossing the Aroostook River coming into Presque Isle from Caribou. And the special traverses Squapan Lake, heading from Northern Main Junction on June 1st. And finally, the sun comes out fully at the end of the 2-day trip as they're arriving back at Northern Main Junction. Now we're going to wrap up this program with my dad and I standing in front, Niels, standing in front of BL2 American Railfan several years later on inside display at the Coal Transportation Museum. My dad and I traveled together on multitudes of Railfan trips, with he taking movies and I stills. My dad was editor of the 470s newsletter and treasurer for 25 years. Well, the Bangor Aroostook took such good care of its first generation locomotives that 2 more of its BL2s, along with an F3, have been preserved. And then here's, oh man, I wish this steam locomotive had been preserved, but this is a Ray Higgins photo in the last year of steam operations in 1952. And now on that note, that is the end. Thank you. Hey, we'll be back again sometime.
We'll be here.
I have hundreds of other sound movies and other programs that I could present in the future. Grab my zip drive here.
We're logging off, everybody. Have a great night.
So Dan, we're not going to opportunity for questions.
Oh, sorry. Yeah, that's fine. Have I been, no, I'm still live. Yeah. I'm not the expert on the Bangor Aroostook that Jerry Angier was, but I've, you know, I heard Jerry had died. It just kind of really moved me forward in analyzing the Bangor Aroostook. Yep. And especially it took quite a while to get a handle on the current layout, the lines up there. And of course, the Main Central has had its share of woes. Hopefully with CSX in charge, they're beginning, Lucas Lighton said they're laying ribbon rail and trying to get the line up to Mattawamkeag beyond 10 miles an hour now. So that they and the CP should help our railroads in Maine become a little bit more healthy. And J.D. Irving, you know, they're doing a fabulous job on the New Brunswick Southern and with some of the breathing new life in some of the lines up north. Anybody have any specific questions? Not sure I can answer any of them because unless I have notes. Well, in that case, I will see you maybe at the Conway Scenic's 50th anniversary coming right up, August 3rd and 4th.
Okay. One last chance. Nobody has any questions for Ron.
I answered them
Actually,
all. Whoop.
I shared some of my photos of Bangor Aroostook 557 to the 470 Railroad Club when I was visiting Maine during my family vacation.
When was that?
Your presentation was fantastic.
Whew. Well, I thank Jerry Anger because I got a lot of information from his books. And just, you know, you go online and J.D. Irving, he said, my main railway leads to, and then tried to, because you don't see all of this history in one place. It's usually spread out, you know, over years. I know that Alan tries to alert us to the different changes as time goes on, but the railroad scene is changing.